My name's Adam. This is my wife Tammy. We're the Papes.
So after we had our son Tony, biological child, we ended up having 2 miscarriages, trying to have a second child. Doctors felt like we would not be able to carry pregnancy to term. At that point in time, we had a family member, Adam's brother and our sister-in-law, and they had decided to adopt a little girl, Katie, from Guatemala. And we watched that process, and we were kind of interested in that.
I was reluctant at first when Tammy brought it up to me. After 2 miscarriages, I think it was just a very uncomfortable scenario for me.
So what happened was my sister-in-law gave me a book called The Lost Daughters of China. And I read the book, and it was all about the one-child policy and what was happening in China, and that there were a number of girls over there that needed homes. About a month later, we were at a pet store looking around. I felt a tug on my leg, and a little girl was pulling on my pant leg, and when she looked up at me, she was a Chinese little girl, and she thought I was her mom. And at that point in time, I really felt like God was making it very clear that we were supposed to adopt, and that we did have a child across the world that was needing a mother and a father. The adoption is a long, grueling process. It takes about a year. A lot of paperwork, home visits, referrals, background checks.
So then we flew to China. You know, you're there and you're excited because you just want to get your child, but they actually make you go through 3 days of sightseeing before they'll actually take you to the area where your children are. And we have what they call is the gotcha day, which is the day that they hand you your child. So we finally heard our name, and they brought her to us, and that was our gotcha moment. And then, you know, there's a small celebration there, and then you go back to the hotel. So it was a very exciting moment, and a lot of tears, but at the same time, that was the moment that we recognized, you know, there was an issue.
My college degree of working with children with disabilities really kicked in, and I saw a lot of hand flapping, a loss of eye contact, just saw something wrong from the moment the baby was brought in the room.
Yeah, it was evident immediately.
But you're so excited about the moment, and we had gone through so much to get to this moment that we didn't want to believe it. So we held her. Right away, though, we were holding her and trying to get eye contact and looking at her, and we knew something was not right with this child. Every time we would lay her down, she was picking up her head and slamming it as hard as she could onto whatever we would set her on, and it didn't seem to affect her at all. So at that point, we immediately contacted our adoption agency. We had some representatives there. They contacted doctors. We contacted doctors in the United States. It was quite a long process. We spent thousands of dollars on phone calls. At that point, it was clear to us that this child was not going to make it and was not doing well. And what we thought was a situation where we were going to be coming home with our baby turned into a rescue mission for a baby to try to get her help. At that point, we spent 3 days trying to get this baby some help, knowing we were probably not going to come home with a child. I would say probably the worst part of it was an evening that we had where we decided to take her to the emergency room.
It was a madhouse, as you had people lined probably 20 deep to get into a room and fighting to get into the room. And I remember distinctly holding up cash, because our guide told us, hold up cash and you'll get in. So I held up, I think it was a $20 bill.
Yeah. And we were handing a baby over, saying, we need help. We need help for this baby.
And we got into an examination room, and I had to physically put my foot against the door because people were trying to push their way in. It was that chaotic. And then we were able to discuss with the doctor, you know, what was going on with this baby. Nothing really resolved except maybe acknowledgement that, yeah, there's a problem. And that acknowledgement was very, very important, because it led to the orphanage having to admit the different steps they've taken with this child to cover up the fact that she was that sick. And I don't remember what government agency it was, but they finally stepped in and said, yes, we recognize this, and this child's not going back to that orphanage. We're going to take the child and we're going to get the child some help.
Right.
But for us, that decision was, do you give the child up? And that was a decision we prayed on, obviously, and what's best for our family, and with all the conversations we had back with the doctors in the States and family members, that was the decision we made, was we think it's in the best interest of the child to stay here and receive help, if that's even possible at this point.
But I would say, though, the low point was giving the baby back in that moment. We had a cross, and I put the cross on her, and handed the baby over. We went back to our hotel room, and it was like experiencing a miscarriage again.
Yes.
We were all alone that night. No family, no, in another country across the world, no baby. Everything had just fallen through, and we were pretty much at the bottom of the bottom that night.
We went back to the hotel room. It was a very lonely time for the both of us. I remember distinctly there were twin beds in this hotel room, and we were just laying in the bed, pretty much crying.
Yeah.
Not knowing what the next step would be. And then I remember, I started kind of chuckling, and I remember Tammy asking me, what are you laughing at? What could possibly be funny in this moment? And I said, you're not going to believe this, but while I was laying here, I just noticed my foot was tapping to a song. And she said, well, what song? And I said, well, it took me a minute to figure it out, but it was the song God is in Control. I mean, it wasn't a song that I knew very well. I had this, just a relief come over me. Something was lifted off of me in this moment of absolute horror.
We felt some times where we were really being led by God, and we felt some times of surrender where maybe we were in a bit of a free fall. And this is the part where we started feeling like we were being held and that there was a bigger plan. So that night, we received a phone call from our adoption agency. We did have some people traveling with us. One was named Tina, or Christina as we called her, and Joshua. They came to our room and said, hey, China feels very badly about what happened. They would like to make things right, and we would like to get you another child if you guys are still willing to.
Actually, China said no.
Oh, that's right.
So we received the call from our guide that night that China said no, we couldn't adopt another child.
That's right.
But then he asked the question to us both, do you want me to fight for it?
That's right.
And I was done. But before I could say no, Tammy said yes, and he went with it.
I had talked to my mom the night before, just in tears. I had been on my knees most of the night, crying and praying, and she said, whatever you do, do not come home without a baby. Whatever you can possibly do, it's worth saving another life there while you're there. Do not come home without a baby. And that just really stuck in my head.
I believe the next day that his wife, the other attorney, she called us and said, I've found you a child. And there was a couple of hoops we had to jump through. We had to go through a lot of hoops in China.
You have to keep in mind, our whole entire adoption group had already boarded their flights and gone home. We were completely out of money, so we had to get money wired to us. We didn't have any more food. We didn't have any more clothes. We had nothing, and we had another 4 days that we had to make it in China with nothing.
So yeah, I remember Christina brought us a photo of the baby, and we kind of had a pact that we weren't, we were hurt. So for us to go there and have basically another scaled down version of a gotcha day, which was extremely scaled down. I think I said, well, I'm not going to hold the baby. And then she came out.
They held her and brought her out. He went back on his word and walked right up to the baby and grabbed her. And
not sorry. And then it came time to name her.
Yeah, we still didn't have a name. But when Tina did hand select our daughter, she pulled her off of the bottom of the pile. And it turns out to this day, our daughter, whom we named Faith, is the youngest child ever leave China on an adoption.
And we made her middle name Christina, after Tina, who was, this wonderful woman who helped us. And then, we get her back home, and, we start our life, and it's going great. This is where it kind of comes full circle, is the day after her 3rd birthday, she got really sick. So she was in the hospital. We had to take her to the hospital. Had 107-degree fever. She had, a seizure because of the fever. She was hallucinating, and we were very scared. So we got her down to Children's Hospital here in Cincinnati, where they ran just a ton of tests on her, immediate, as soon as we entered the door. Spinal taps and things like that, which are just horrific. And I'm holding her and praying with her, and she doesn't, she's 3, she didn't know what was going on, but I know for a fact that Children's Hospital Cincinnati saved her life. Just knowing where she came from, and that she was able to receive that care here that saved her life, and knowing in my heart that she would not have received that care there, that was another one of those God moments where you realized, I didn't know his plan at the time, but it's working out for a reason. And here we were in Cincinnati 3 years after we got home, and the thought just, obviously went through my mind that if she were still in China, she would not be alive at this particular moment.
So often we are comforted by our money or our home or our friends or our family or our jobs. But I felt like in China, all of that was just swept out from under us. We didn't have anyone. We were out of money. We didn't have a baby. Everything was as bad as it could get. But what I found was that we were held during that time, and we actually found peace, and we felt God's presence like I've never felt before. Knowing that he was there, and really it all comes down to God at that point. Nothing else matters.
At the time when we were in China, the whole thing was, why are we being put through this? What's this test all about? And I know that you never know what God's plans are, or at least very rarely are they revealed early on. And I don't know that they've been revealed yet, and it's 16 years after the fact, but I do know that experience when she was 3 and she was saved by the doctors here in America. I know that was God's hand, and I know that was part of his plan the entire time. And like I said, I don't know where it's going. I don't know overall. Like you said, she's going to change the world, and she is, and she has. But I don't think the full plan is going to be realized until much, much further down the road. Part of it's been realized, but I think there's a lot more to come. And it's just, it was a tragic experience, but it's an awesome experience at the same time to be at peace in a time of absolute horror is just amazing.
I feel like we need to tell the story, even though it's a painful story. It's an important story to tell.
Again?
No, it's good.
Oh. Hi, I'm Faith Pape. I'm 16 years old, and I'm a junior at Madeira High School in Cincinnati, Ohio. Well, I think adoption is a really long and difficult process, but it's definitely worth it in the end. And it shaped my life because I'm here in the United States. I'm with a great family whom I love and they love me. I never really realized that 107-degree fever is that high. I don't know. So it's never really hit me, but to look back on that and think that it was such a scare, it makes me really thankful to still be here. I couldn't ask for better parents. They've really just raised me in the best way they could, and I'm hoping it turns out well.
You're hoping it turns out well.
Who knows? So anything else?